do we think we're okay for position up a bit? How does that work?
Me up
here?
a bit? No, I'm... Ooh. I think I dated him once. Did I say that out loud?
Okay. So I'm just going to lean in and say, welcome, everyone. I'm Tommy Smythe. I'm not Debbie Travis.
I'm not Tommy Smythe. I'm Debbie Travis. Welcome, everybody.
Oh, here we go. Thank you. Oh, my gosh.
Is it nice and clear? All the technical stuff?
That's great. Just put it right in my face.
As the actress said to the bishop. Last thing Sarah said
you.
was, keep it clean.
Thank you. So I want to first mention that some of you know who this is, but we do have a special guest joining us in this chair a little bit further along in the program. We're very, very excited to have her, there's a hint, with us tonight. So a little bit more about that later. This is live, so we want you to enjoy yourselves. We want you to have fun. You don't have to be quiet just because we're being recorded. You can hoot and holler and clap and say things and shout things, and it's totally fine. We want it to feel like there's a live audience because you are alive for now in the audience.
Before anybody dozes off.
So it's only Monday. This is a lot for a Monday. It's a big Monday, and we want to start that off well. So we have drinks. So we want to say, Aperol is a big part of our lives, actually. I mean, they are a new sponsor for the Trust Me, I'm a Decorator podcast, but Debbie and I are both big fans of the Aperol.
Yeah, we are. We actually drink it, and a lot.
We do.
And, it's one of those, I'm not drinking, give me an Aperol. But it's a great drink for all year, because it's been one of those drinks that you have just in the summer, and now it's become, it's very autumnal, isn't it? And,
I mean, look at the
colour. And I dressed like an Aperol, so this is my Halloween costume. I'm going as an Aperol Spritz.
I'm the Hamburglar, but McDonald's is not a sponsor. No, it is very...
We just lost the sponsorship.
It is an amazing companion for food, and it's great for conversation and hang out with friends, and that's really what the Trust Me, I'm a Decorator podcast is all about. So we're thrilled to have Aperol on board, because life is more fun when you're sharing laughs with friends over an Aperol Spritz. And we're going to do that tonight. How about right now?
Oh, cheers, everybody. Cheers, everybody's got a drink.
So cheers, everybody. Oh, look, there's our families in the back. Okay.
Glaring at us. I can see my son going, please, none of the usual stories. About me growing up.
It wouldn't be a podcast episode if Debbie wasn't embarrassing at least one of her children. Sorry, Max. Okay, so getting on with the program, we are going to be starting off with talking about Debbie's book, which I brought out with me here. So,
could you just say best-selling book ever?
I can say that. I think you just did.
Yeah.
So this is already a bestseller.
Yeah.
It is called Laugh More, Stories from an Unexpected Life. Having known Debbie for as long as I've known her and having spent as much time together as we have, I can tell you that when you're with Debbie, you do laugh more. And that unexpected things in life happen when you're anywhere near Debbie. So fasten your seatbelts, folks, because tonight could be one of those times. But Debbie, we're going to talk a little bit I'm going to interview you a little bit about the book, if that's okay. All right? So one thing that we should start with, coming off of that little toast that we've just done, is that isn't there a story about Aperol Spritz in the book?
There is. And
which was written before Aperol was a sponsor.
Oh, yeah. No, there's a recipe in there because we drink a lot of it. I know there's a lot of ladies here who've been to our retreats who've drank Aperol
there's my
dry.
retreat girls.
Yeah. So in the book, there's I think that there's recipes because recipes ignite memories and memories ignite, meals and things. And we all had that famous, that souffle that we remember because it was with some gorgeous person and on holiday that you just met. So I put recipes in because they're beautiful memories, food. So there's quite a few in there. But really the book is a year. I started writing it 18 months ago, 2 years ago, as the year goes around. So it's a year in Italy around the 4 seasons. But just like any of us, when you go on a girls' night out or you're talking, and I know we won't keep to any script tonight, you kind of bounce off the stories. So you tell a story about something that's happening in Italy, and then you go, oh my God, that reminds me of when I was 8, and this happened. So it's a bit attention deficit. I'm bouncing all over the map in it, and then of course that story would ignite a meal, So I put the recipe in there as well.
It's a little bit being like inside of Debbie's mind, which is
frightening,
delicious, and colorful, and yes, at times a little chaotic.
It's not when you said that when we got off the boat. You were like, goodbye, don't call me again, ever.
I was seeing you in 3 days' time.
We went down the Danube.
I had to reset.
Together for a week, and he nearly drowned me.
Okay, back to the book. So what inspired you to write this particular book? Because you've written several others. And what is it about this book that sort of sets it apart from the other books that you've given us?
So this book came out of, when we do these, I kind of left television and bought this ruin in Italy, decided I didn't want to spend my twilight years just sitting looking at the husband and the dog. I would invite other people to share it with me because I felt so good whenever I was there. So since 2015, people have been coming to stay. And everybody who's here, who's ever been, knows there's a lot of storytelling. And we have forums in the evening, and when I tell a story, then somebody else tells a story. And these stories that have come out of our guests really, it's the camaraderie of people being together. And so I decided to really write down funny stories, because we're living in an age a week, shall we call it, that is so depressing. We don't even want to turn the news on. So I just feel sometimes, when you have a book that you can dip in and out of, and there's just funny stories of this unexpected life, which is my life, I'm hoping you'll have a very, very good laugh.
Well, the first little bit that I heard you actually read at the last retreat that I was your guest host of, and it was so funny. And I mean, you can't write a book called Laugh More and then not make it funny. So like the stakes are high, and I can tell you, she had us all in the room laughing hysterically. It's extremely,
what was the
extremely
story?
Funny. It was a story about the pond.
Oh, well, yeah, there was, can I tell the story?
Well, the next question is, what's the most embarrassing story you shared in your book? So I don't know if this one's embarrassing, but certainly most of Debbie's... I will say one thing before you start on this story. I realized when Debbie started telling us about the different chapters that were in the book and reading from a few of them, that every story features a really extraordinarily handsome Italian man or two.
Or two, yeah. Well, we have... where the villa is, where does the sun go up? On the east, right? So on the east side, is it the east?
It is the east, yes.
Okay, right.
Yeah, that's why I'm here to moderate.
He's the clever one. So on the east side, we have a natural spring. So we'd been arguing for years about putting in a pond where the women could come and do meditation. And I'm sure any man here would say, yes, let's put the pond where the spring is. But I like the other side, the west side, because that's where the sun went down, and it was nicer for the meditation platform I'd planned. Anyway, a couple of years ago, Hans, who's my husband, who's cringing somewhere, no, he's back in Italy, he had come back to Canada and left me with quite a nice chunk of money just to pay workers and things like that. There was quite a lot going on at the property. Anyway, one day, I see a car parked in the woods in one of the olive groves, and this very handsome, but like a caricature of an Italian, with the long slick back hair, the cigarette, the tight Prada pants, and everything, leaning leisurely over the car. Tommy, stop it.
I wouldn't have noticed that they were tight pants, yeah. But you did. You noticed.
So he walked up to me and he said this wonderful Italian word, principetta. And I said, oh, yes, hello. And he said, have you ever thought about putting in a pond? I was like, oh, my God, you've been reading my thoughts. I said, well, yes. He said, let's walk the property. So we both decided together we would put the pond where there's no water. So he said, well, would you like to go ahead? And I said, yes, when can you start? And he said, tomorrow morning, which is very unusual for Italians. So I said, okay, great. So I handed him this pile of money. Yeah, you know where this is going. So the next thing was I woke up in the morning and there was more gorgeous-looking guys with a bulldozer, and they dug out a hole the size of 4 tennis courts. And I'm like, whoa, okay. And then they put this plastic in, this rubber all the way around. I started thinking, ooh, that's not very nice. But he brought me figs. So, Prince Petra, I brought you figs from my farm. So I was like, oh, he's so nice. Even though I had this gut feeling something was going terribly wrong. And then Hans arrived back, Mr. Miserable, and said, who is that man with the sleek back hair? And I said...
did Hans notice that the pants were tight? I don't think he did.
I don't think he did.
No, he didn't.
No, he was too miserable. And he said, I said, that's Sergio. And he brings me figs, fresh, every morning from his farm. He said, who's Sergio? I said, he's the pond builder, digger, whatever. He said, why is he putting a plastic liner in, Debbie, when we have no water in the summer and the pond should go on the other side? Anyway... it was all a bit of a disaster because Sergio he just made a run for it and disappeared. And then we lived with this mess of a pond because the weeds all came through it and any water we had disappeared like a sieve. And then, of course, we had to rip the whole thing out.
But the figs were very good.
The figs were delicious. And so was Sergio.
Wonderful figs. Very, very lovely figs. Who is your favorite writer? And is there a book that you have read a number of times? Could you share some of your favorites? I mean, we know that you fell in love with Under the Tuscan Sun.
Well, yeah, I have to say it's one of my favorites, and I'm very lucky that Frances May's also... So Frances wrote the back of the book, and she's a fabulous writer. She's done about 80 books, I think, and of course the most famous is Under the Tuscan Sun, and her book...
Her new book, A Great Marriage, too, is really amazing.
The Great Marriage that's just come out, and then Women in Sunlight. When she wrote the back of the book, I'm like, really? Really? It's better than the whole book, you know, the paragraph on the back. So I love her books. I think she's a very poetic writer.
I do too. And thank you for introducing me to her because she's quite
loves you.
Really fun person to hang out with.
Yeah.
Yes, she requested me when I was there last time. And I was quite flattered.
She said, you can leave Debbie at home. Why don't you come for tea?
I tried my best to be a good conversationalist. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do a little bit of a game.
Yes.
Okay? Because we want to warm everybody up before Cynthia comes out because, you know...
Before the strippers come out.
Oh, did I just give it away?
Oh, Tommy!
Listen, I said there would be hints.
Okay.
Maybe that was a really big hint.
Like her name.
Big hint. This is called Name the Host, and it's sponsored by our friends at Aperol, who are all about joy and laughter, of course, just like us, and like the book, and Basma Beauty. It's a Canadian company founded by Basma Hamid. They're in Sephora, and they're being worn by all the biggest celebrities. Ooh. The winner of this game will get shade matched for the viral popular foundation stick and cream blush. Ooh. All of their products are ultra hydrating and super buildable, which in makeup means like you can really work with multiple layers. And
yeah, we know, Tommy.
Okay. Well, you get your makeup done now because you're so posh. Okay, so our producer, our wonderful, amazing producer, Sarah, thank you, Sarah, has compiled a list of crazy things that we've said or talked about since we started the podcast. So these are quotes that you have said, things you have said, and things that I have said.
She remembered them? Yeah, okay.
Well, she has the tapes.
Okay.
The digital recordings. I'm aging myself saying tapes. She's got the analog 8 tracks. She's winding them with a pencil. Okay, so here's how it works. We have 2 audience members who are going to compete, and we're going to invite them to meet Sarah at the front of the stage now. They are Heather and Marcy. The player with the most points after 5 questions will win a little prize pack, which includes a copy of Debbie's book, this one here, and some other goodies. When we read the quote, we're not going to tell you who said it, which of the 2 of us said it. You're going to hold up the paddle that has the face of the person you think said the quote, and then I'm going to use that little pad and pen there and keep track of and keep score.
And can
probably very poorly.
Can we join in?
The audience is allowed to join in. You can totally shout the answers.
Can I?
I will say who it was for the people that are listening and can't see this or not watching on YouTube, because these are going up on YouTube now. I never thought I would be on YouTube.
Oh.
My friend's son has a YouTube channel, and I thought, oh, I'm on YouTube now. So, okay, Heather and Marcy, where are you? Okay, which one are you? Heather, where's Marcy?
Right here.
There's you. Okay, come on. Yes, of course. Oh my God, I know Marcy.
Okay, she wasn't in.
Amazing. Okay, yeah.
No
Marcy,
cheating.
Marcy wins. Sorry, Heather.
Heather wins.
Sorry, Heather, unless you've got a couple of brown notes in there. Could be Marcy. Okay, so we're going to start. I did not select the photo of myself, but clearly Debbie selected the one of her because it's stunning. And mine is goofy and weird. Actually, Debbie probably selected both.
I did.
Okay, so if you are listeners to the podcast, many of these things, how many are already listening to the podcast? Lots of you.
Oh, great.
So you may remember some of these comments, but if you haven't remembered the comments, try to think of which one of us would have said this thing. Okay? So let's start. Which one of us nearly died once from an artichoke? Marcy gets it because she was first, and it's Debbie. Wait, you have to turn that up. Oh, you've got it for the audience, yes.
This is so...
Do it when for me.
Okay.
But also for them.
Okay.
So like this, Marcy.
Yes, listen up.
Yes, exactly. Flick of the wrist. Flick of the wrist.
Marcy. Hi, I'm Heather. Oh, hi. I'm playing too, Tommy.
Heather, I see you. I do. I do. And if you accuse me of favoritism, you will win. Just so you know. Okay, which one of us had a television show?
Well, you kind of did.
It's both. You're both wrong. You're both wrong. We both did. Who said, and this is a quote, "I like to eat the clean 15 and hang out with the dirty dozen." Yeah, it's me.
Not me.
I was first. She was first.
Which one of us once used dog shampoo, particularly that of an Irish setter? And it was Debbie. Oh my God. Why?
Well, it's shiny. It's like,
Okay.
by mistake, it was an
Have you used it
accident.
tonight?
No, it's just shiny.
Whose partner's private parts were showcased on Instagram Live? Marcy was first, and yes, it's
Me?
Debbie. It was. Yeah, it was hands. He was on the sofa asleep,
Oh, God.
and you could see right up the leg of his Y-front.
No, what happened was during COVID, the reason we did this podcast was because we used to do a live Instagram, and I was always in London in lockdown. Tommy was here, and we weren't very good at it, and the camera falling on the floor and getting it done and everything. And I am blind as a bat, so I had the camera there, and suddenly we're 10 minutes in, and there's a banging on the door. And a friend up the road was listening to the podcast, listening to the Instagram. She comes and she said, "Debbie, please." I said, "What? What?" I said, "I'm in the middle of an Instagram Live." And she said, "I know, but you've got the camera the wrong way round." And Hans is in his underwear watching something on television. And he was sprawled out with a beer in the background.
Okay. Oh my God.
So,
and
yeah.
then we moved the Instagram Lives to the podcast format because Debbie was going to get canceled if we didn't. Okay. The next one is, who said, "Driving in a car with you is one of the most terrifying experiences I've ever had. You are such a chaotic driver."
I'm not.
Who was first? Heather was first. See,
No,
Heather,
you
I'm not favoring.
you actually said, "If you don't stop driving like this, I'm getting out." And I said, "Sure, jump."
Well, I think Patrick was in the car too. I think we were both clutching each other in the
Yeah.
back. And Jackie was in the front with you saying, trying to tell you not to reverse into the tractor. That part I remember very clearly. "Debbie, please don't reverse. There's a tractor. Don't reverse into the... Debbie, don't reverse into the tractor."
Yeah,
that was going on and on. Who rode off a car, as in like got it in such a bad accident it was a total write-off, and almost killed some poor man an hour before their wedding? You're not allowed to put up your hand.
Oh, sorry.
Who was first? It was Marcy.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Marcy.
We're tied.
We're tied. Come on, girls, let's make it really difficult.
Okay. Whose morning travel routine is get your coffee and walk until, and I quote, "I have to rush back to the hotel because we all know what coffee does." It was me, and who was first? Marcy? Heather?
I think.
Heather was first. Heather's very honest. She's like, "Yes, I was first." Very honest, Heather. Very honest. Who said, "If you are what you eat, my partner and I are at least 50% olive oil"? It was Debbie, and Heather got it.
Did I?
Oh, yeah. And it's Debbie's olive oil that we are 50% made from. Whose granny intentionally delivered an 8x10 envelope sealed with a nude photograph of her sitting on a rock in her mid-40s for Christmas one year? It was Debbie and it was Heather.
I mean, did you ever do anything wrong? It's like...
I mean, There's a lot of Debbies in here. Apparently, Debbie says the more outrageous things, which is why we went to a pre-recorded format. These are the things you actually have heard on the podcast. The things that Sarah has in her back pocket, in case she needs them one day, are a lot more. Who tormented a 200-year-old rose garden in Vienna? It was, okay, so you were first and you were wrong, Heather. Marcy gets it.
But that wasn't my fault. That wasn't my fault.
What do you mean it wasn't your fault? You were hanging from a 200-year-old rose branch.
Has anybody been to Vienna?
How's that not your fault?
In the middle of Vienna, isn't it beautiful? Isn't it the most beautiful place? And Tommy and I went on this cruise thing that we had to do. And anyway, we go into Vienna and there's a rose garden. It is the most beautiful rose garden you've ever seen. So I said, we've got to do some Instagram shots.
You wanted to do a meme thing.
Yeah, and there was a beautiful arch that was probably goes back to, I don't know if anybody's watched The Empress. Oh my God, watch it on Netflix. I'm watching it now. This goes right back to the
Netflix,
the
not
Empire.
a sponsor.
And there's this gorgeous arch. And I said, well, why Tommy gets the camera, why don't I swing on it? And of course, I'm not exactly 10 pounds, so I go like this. And he went, and everybody's standing there. So if you ever go back to Vienna to the rose garden now, it's probably all wilted roses. You know, 'cause
I think it was
terrible.
okay. I did look at it really closely, and I think it was just a bit of a false alarm, but it was very stressful for me.
Yes, but we got the crack on the video.
Oh my God. Okay. Moving on, and this is a trick question because it really could have been either one of us. Who referred to Speedos as grape smugglers, nut huts, budgie smugglers, scrote totes, or truffle duffels? It was Debbie and it was Heather got it first. Okay.
Oh, God.
Tied again, okay. Who was almost escorted out of a palace because they kept feeling it up? Get your hands off the marble. Marcy gets it. It was Debbie.
Yeah.
She was feeling up the marble and she was told not to do it. And then the man walked away and she went like this. I swear to God that is a true story. I was just like, Debbie. Who is writing a book titled 101 Ways to Get Arrested in Europe with my co-host? It's 100% me.
Tommy.
Heather gets it. You were right. It could have been either one of us.
So we're tied again. So we need one more. Do you want me to come up with it, or do you guys want to come up with it?
I think you better, because I can't remember what I said yesterday, let alone like 30 episodes ago.
Who had potentially a love affair with a carrot?
Turn it around for me, Marcy. Nope.
Oh, you're both wrong.
Marcy still gets it. She was fast. It was Debbie.
I
can't
a little
believe
bit
you
of
all
that
thought
story.
that I was the one who had a love affair with a carrot.
No, you just wished.
I'm a top.
You want to hear about the carrot?
Oh my God. We talked about this on the last live podcast.
Yeah, this was awful. So I was doing an event with Martha Stewart in Kansas. And I was very tired. I'd been doing quite a lot of stuff. And I fly in, and there's a mall there, a really amazing-looking mall, with Neiman Marcus, where we were going to be doing this speech, and a fancy hotel. So I go in the hotel, and there's going to be a cocktail or something, a welcome thing. And I thought, I really don't want to go. So I made some excuse, and there were quite a lot of hosts there, so it didn't really matter. Anyway, my room was really small. Really, really small. And I thought, I'm just going to watch a movie, and I'm not going to eat. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll have a little bit, you know. So I called downstairs, and I said, do you have a chicken breast? And the guy said, yes, we have a chicken breast and some vegetables. I said, okay, great. I'm going to order a chicken breast. He said, would you like something to drink? So I said, no, it's fine. So he comes up, and he brings the chicken breast, and I put a movie on, and those were the days, I don't know if they still do it, where you pay for the film, and what was the film called?
Oh, it was that really filthy one with Diane Lane in it, and that really hunky guy with the dark hair.
In Chicago,
Somebody
Unfaithful, that was it.
Unfaithful.
With this gorgeous French guy, absolutely gorgeous, and she's married to Richard
Just watching
Gere.
that movie made you feel like you were being unfaithful
So she's
to your
having a
partner.
terrible marriage with Richard Gere. She's in the Windy City, and her stuff falls over, and she meets this French guy. Anyway, there's some very heavy sex scenes, and I mean real legs in the air, muff diving, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, the guy knocks on the door, and he comes in just as the filthy, it looks like I'm watching a porno, you know, and he walks in, and the room is tiny, so he's getting past the bed, and he's looking at the television like that, and all I'm looking at is the chicken, and I said, that's not a chicken breast, that's a chicken leg. He said, oh. I said, can you bring me a chicken breast? I don't like chicken legs. So he says, okay. So he backs out of the room, and he comes back up. And this time, he's not gone very long, and I'm sure he's just sawed off the leg and smashed it like this, probably in the elevator, you know, like that. And he brings it in, and the next scene's on. It was even filthier. And he's a little old man, you know, in this posh hotel, and he's looking at like this, and he's looking at me like going, ooh, and I'm in my pajamas. And I'm like, okay, just leave it there. So he's obviously gone downstairs and says there's some sex fiend in the room watching dirty movies. Anyway, I thought, I do need a drink. So I called downstairs and I said, do you have a carafe of wine? And they said, a what? I said, a carafe. I said, you know what? Not a whole carafe. I'll have half a carafe. And it's deathly quiet on the phone. And he says, okay, ma'am. And next minute, there's a little old man knocks at the door. And I believe me, the next sex scene's on. And he comes in with one little white plate with half a carrot on. Obviously, couldn't take a whole carrot.
And I have one question. Did you leave the movie on?
I'd given up. I just wanted to put my head under the pillows with him.
Oh, my God.
Sorry, did I interrupt?
Your son is here.
I know.
Sorry, Max. That's the second sorry, Max of the evening. Okay, so I think the moment has come to segue into our third block.
Our third block.
Which means we are welcoming back return guest Cynthia Loyst from The Social. Cynthia also has her own podcast, which encourages laughing at uncomfortable moments, called Cynthia and Josie's Unmentionables. Cynthia, you're back.
Guys?
Look at how good you look.
Gorgeous. Look at those legs.
Well, they're sparkly, aren't they? And I have a story about a cucumber, but it didn't go the same way. I'm kidding, guys.
We're all friends here. I think we can
No.
talk about all the vegetables that we enjoy.
That's fine, yes.
Whether at home or in hotel
That's
rooms
right.
whilst traveling.
That's right.
So, welcome back,
Thank you.
Cynthia. We're
Thank
so
you.
happy to have you back. I want to talk to you a little bit about, like, in keeping with the theme of speaking about joy and laughing more, I want to talk to you a little bit about, like, how laughter in friendships and co-hosted shows matters so much, because your career has really had so many different layers to it. Really, you're an author. You've been co-host of The Social for so many years. I was in rehearsals with you, like, before that show even aired.
Yes.
And now, you know, after selling, you were a sex expert, which a lot of people don't know because it doesn't actually come up on The Social all that often in conversation. But there are a lot of layers. So where does laughter come in with sex, co-hosting, and writing books?
I mean, sex has always got some laughter in it. Good sex. I think
For the men, maybe not so much.
For me, I've always wanted to connect with other people, and I think there are some people who got into this business like ours because they really love the limelight. I'm actually a reluctant on-air host.
I know that about you.
Yeah, my default mode is to be an introvert. It took a lot for me to get comfortable being in front of people and speaking, and the one thing that keeps coming up time and time again is just how wonderful it is to work with other women and be joyful and laugh a lot. So The Social has been this wonderful thing that I sort of fell into later on in my career. And, you know, we've had ups and downs, but a lot of laughter and a lot of having each other's backs. And then during the pandemic, of course, like everyone else, felt like what the hell is going on in the world, and found this unexpected friendship in this woman named Josie Dye, who works for Chum Radio. She's a longtime radio host, a legend in that world. Yeah, some fans here. And so we were hanging out together because she has an immune-compromised son, and we were both very nervous about sending our kids back to school. So we started this small little learning pod because our kids were all around the same age. And what was born out of that was this incredible, we would sit around, we would have a couple drinks, let the kids play, and we would talk about things. And the theme that kept coming up over and over again with us was, oh, I would love to talk about this, but I can't say that out loud, right? Mm-hmm. So with this theme of kind of unmentionables emerged. And, our very first podcast, for those of you who haven't heard it, it is called Cynthia and Josie's Unmentionables. But it is about both of us discovering that we both had hemorrhoids at the same time. And this was, you have to sort of listen to the podcast, but it is one of the funniest stories in the world because I was not as uncomfortable with this topic as she was. I mean, I kind of was uncomfortable. I didn't wanna,
Everybody's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
How many people in the audience have hemorrhoids right now? Now, not a single hand goes up.
No,
that's how uncomfortable people are.
Thank you.
That's how uncomfortable.
I guess, but Josie had been hiding it from everyone in her life. Her work, she had told them that she had some kind of a disease because she needed to take time off work. So she'd concocted this lie that took on a life of its own. And it just so happens that I got it out of her. Anyway, you have to listen to the podcast, but we have had more laughs. And I think the idea that I think is that when we talk about things that supposedly are supposed to fill us with shame, there's something liberating about it because most people have had awkward, awful, strange, funny, sexy sometimes experiences. And I think that these stories unite us. And I think we should they liberate us from shame.
Sometimes the sex and the shame and the humor all go together.
That's right.
Like a salad.
That's right.
But I bet there's something that neither of you see to do with hemorrhoids.
Now what are you going to do?
I'm not going to show you mine. I mean, I walked across Vietnam to raise money for colon cancer a few years ago, and we had elephants carrying our bags. And one of the elephants, I can guarantee nobody in the room has ever seen this before, had a hemorrhoid. And if you've ever seen an elephant's hemorrhoid, it's larger than a large football.
You can't unsee that, I'm sure. It's just bare.
It's just, and it was.
I'm picturing it.
It was weeping, and we had a lot of weeping. We had a lot of colorectal nurses on the trek, and one of them said, if I had some dental floss, I could get that off in like 2 seconds.
Oh.
It was disgusting.
I want you to know that the next question that I am to read on this podcast recording is discuss a time when you couldn't believe something your co-host did. The elephant hemorrhoid story now ranks very high for me. Cynthia, how about you?
I mean, I was shocked when, again, my co-host Josie decided to share her husband's broken penis story.
He broke his penis?
He broke his penis. And
I've broken a few in my day.
You have not.
No, I haven't. Oh, my God. Patrick's mother is here. No, I haven't. I've never had sex in my life. Patrick's mother's in the room.
It was an incredible thing because, I heard that he'd broken his penis because she called me and she was like, Joel broke his penis. And Joel is this elegant man. He runs a record company. He's
not anymore.
very successful. And what was amazing about it is that he opened up and talked about it as well. So
that's awesome.
I was shocked that they were so open. And I think we did a public service, though, because I learned a lot. We had a doctor come on to talk about the what and the why and the how of it. And, for everyone who's wondering, it has healed. They have had sex since then. They're all okay.
I'm going to look this podcast episode up.
I want to the podcast.
See it. Well, just in case.
Just in case. You never know. Penis owners beware.
Wow.
There is no bone in there to break, though, to be clear, but you can still break it.
Yes, the word boner is a bit of a misnomer.
It is.
I found that out by accident. Yeah. Don't ask for that story. So, Debbie, anything that you were shocked that your co-host said or did?
Well, yes, I was embarrassed of you the whole time on the boat. Tommy is so nice to people, and I loathe people. And so Tommy had gone on this cruise, and I'm not a cruise person. And I said, I will never do it, Tommy. I will never do it. He said, they pay you. I said, okay, when are we going? So we went down the Danube. And Tommy would go off every morning with these coaches of people, and I would be, they've all gone. I had the whole boat to myself. It was absolutely amazing. But you were quite good. I mean, you did embarrass me a bit, though.
I love embarrassing you because you can't be embarrassed.
Well,
you literally just told a story about an elephant hemorrhoid.
Yeah. Well, we were both kind of embarrassed, but we also made a big mistake. So in the middle of Vienna, Vienna is just gorgeous. In the middle of the piazza, the square, Tommy and I go on our own, not with the other people, and they have these, they're like taxis, or like you have in New York, the carriages with the horses. But these are like
They're little motor cars. They're
beautiful-
like chitty chitty bang bang.
They're like chitty bang bangs, but they're obviously built off the famous carriages that they used to go in the Viennese, in the Empire. And these absolute, and they're dark blue, beautiful with like a crest on the side and everything. And I said, well, I think they're like tourist things. I think we can go on one of those. So the first guy we go up to was really rude and nasty and very Germanic, and forget him. Anyway, across the other side of there's this gorgeous-looking Afghanistan guy, and he's going, come. So I said, well, how much is it? And Tommy's available, yeah. How much is it? And he said, it's 40 euros. So I said, come on, Tommy, let's do it. So we're like little tourists, and we go around, and he's pointing. And it's just stunning. And he's pointing all these buildings out and everything. and one of them, I'd said to him, well, which is the famous library? Because there's a library there that's like a museum. And it is 9th century. It is absolutely gorgeous. And which is the library? So he points at that, and we go around and everything. And anyway, towards the end of this 1-hour trip with, driving along, we said, how long have you lived in Vienna? Because your English is really good. He said, I've only been here a week. And we said, oh, okay then. So we pay him and we get out. Everything he pointed out, he just made up.
Yeah, it was wrong.
So it was like...
It was.
The Grand Palace turned out to be a supermarket.
Yeah.
It was like, and then we go. Oh, and then I embarrassed you because we go to the library, which he pointed out, which was not the Grand Library. So finally, we leg it miles, and we find this. Oh my God, the building was gorgeous, and we go in, and there's a line of people paying, and then you go up the stairs into this library, which if you ever go to Vienna, you must go. You can't take a book out. It's like,
It's a museum.
It's a museum, but it's beautiful. And Chopin wrote there, Mozart wrote there. Anyway, so I said to Tommy, nobody's going to notice. Let's just go in. Tommy said, we have to pay. He says, it's only 20 euros. I said, Tommy, you don't have to pay. Come on. So we go upstairs, and there's a little old man on the door. And I said, Tommy, this is how I saved $20. You talk to him, and I'll sneak in, right? And Tommy's like standing there like this. Anyway, I get in, and I get a big kick out of not paying for things. So I get in, and Tommy's standing in the doorway, apologising to this ancient man. You know how you get really old people work in museums, being nice volunteers. So apologises to them. Anyway, he disappears, and I thought, he's gone to pay.
Yeah. And you sent me like 15 text messages. Do not go downstairs and pay for a ticket. You are not to pay for a ticket to get in here. Yeah. I'm already all the way in. He doesn't even know I'm in here now. You just run right past him, like all these texts coming in. Meanwhile, I'm paying €40 for her ticket and my ticket.
Yeah. So he went and paid, and then I
said, this is for me and this is for my friend too. And he was like, yes.
We've already called the police on her.
He had called the guards.
And I find it really amusing when Debbie tells the story about the tourist car guy, because if Debbie got a job doing that job, she would lie about every single thing that was in the city as well. She'd say, that's the city hall. No, it's not. It's the...
Well, my biggest fear in Tuscany, because we do a lot of walks and hikes and stuff, is that, and we have had it a couple of times, that we have a historian there, because sometimes we have had a couple of going, really?
That's not what Debbie said.
I was like, look, if you don't know what it is, just make it up.
Oh, my God. Okay, Cynthia, we want to know the origin story about like how you ended up on The Social. We talked a little bit about what you were doing before that. You've been on air on television for a while before it happened. But how did it all come together? Because not a lot of people really know, like...
Yeah, I mean, I'd been a producer for many, many years on a documentary series about human sexuality, and it was like an award-winning, really, really smart, edgy show. It was groundbreaking for its time.
Very innovative show, yeah.
Very innovative, and we took ourselves very seriously. So again, the only reason why I kind of fell into doing on-air work at all was that in 2008, there was a merger, and I could tell that the new company that had come in and bought us were not really interested in that sex TV show. They were just like, whatever. But one of the CEOs was like, I'm interested in you being a face to talk about sexuality because you feel comfortable. And I was like, no, not interested. But at a certain point, I realized like I was probably going to lose my job if I didn't take him up on this. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna do the leap. And so I did a little bit of television for a bit, talking about sexuality. I had my own show briefly on CP24 called Sex Matters. And then I kept hearing rumblings about this show that someone was working on. It was going to be the Canadian The View. And there had been one incarnation that I don't even know if I'm still can talk about this actually, where we did a pilot for it. And at the time, I was coming on as a sexuality expert, but the people who were in it were totally different than the people who ended up on the social.
Yeah.
So there was an incarnation, and then it died. I don't know why. Fast forward a couple of years, there were rumors again. They're auditioning. And at this point in time, I'd done a bit more television, so they wanted me on as a possible to audition for being a host. And there were a lot of people there.
Yeah.
Like basically almost anyone you can think of in the Canadian television industry was there showing up. But they did different combinations of people.
Different groups.
The very first, the four of us were the four, in the very first group who did auditioned were the four who were chosen.
Yeah, which was Melissa and Tracy and
Melchor, Lainey and
you.
myself. And then Jess Allen as well was a later addition.
Jess was like the social media person who then ended
That's
up
right.
just being too fabulous to be off camera.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So, and then, but none of us, I remember doing press right before the show launched. First of all, we initially were doing it in a studio upstairs that was such a pile of garbage.
Oh yeah, that was
terrible.
before they made it over.
It's
nice now.
It does look nice now, but it looked garbage. And then they moved us downstairs. But literally, we were doing press, and none of us, we were like, people were saying, what is the show going to be about? We're like,
We don't know.
I don't actually know. I remember us kind of stringing words together. It's like fashion, and it's fun, and it's blah, blah, blah. And I was like,
buzzwords.
What in the hell is this going to be?
Ponytails.
It was a lot. And yeah, actually, Jan Arden has called us like when she first saw the initial photographs that were taken, she said, somebody was asking her to be on the show, an executive, and she's like, I don't want to be on this show. This is the big hair and tight dress show. And I looked back at those old
not too
photos.
on brand for Jan.
She did not
have
have any interest in it, but we warmed to her, and then we warmed to each other. And I think what is unique about that show is that we decided to have each other's backs early on. And I think it's too easy for a long time in television, women, I think, were encouraged to be very threatened by one another.
Yes.
And it was really easy then for people who were in charge to be like, oh, well, Debbie thinks this about this, like pull you apart and make you jealous and mad around each other. And we were like, screw that. We are not letting that happen. And it hasn't been perfect, but I think for the most part, we've tried to sort of connect and trust each other because it made more sense than anything else.
You can feel the energy.
Yeah.
It's nice.
I think one of the things, because I've guested on the show a few times, and
so have you.
And so is Debbie. One of the things that people ask me a lot is like, are they really friends? And my answer to that is always like, well, the show wouldn't work if they weren't. It wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And so it's very important, I think. I love the message of that. I have your back, because I think it's something as a guest on the show I always felt. I was always brought into that circle of trust and of, faith that you would get through this live hour of television, and if something went wrong, somebody would help you.
Yeah.
And a lot of people fear live television. Like, it's
terrifying.
It isn't easy, but it's also incredibly exhilarating. It's like sports.
Well, it's like every day, we get to put on a live play. Like that's what it feels like, and the energy of the audience is palpable, and it is so important. It's the extra person on the show is the entire audience, I feel like. But it's scary as hell. And I'm surprised there haven't been more F-bombs. I'm surprised there haven't been more farts. Like things like it's amazing.
Oh my God, yeah.
That there
have been, but they've been,
when
I'm on.
silent. They were silent but deadly. No, there have been.
Falling down the stairs, like that's only happened like once. Like now that I've put it out there,
it's gonna happen tomorrow.
It's gonna happen tomorrow. Yeah.
Well, it's a special show, I think, because you feel that camaraderie and you feel the energy of the live broadcast. And my favorite television I've ever done was live television.
Yeah.
So I understand, how important an aspect of it that is. Can you tell us what your best or worst celebrity stories are? And you can change the name of the celebrity, or you can be ambiguous about who it was if it's nasty.
I think a rule of thumb, and maybe people know this, is that the bigger the actor is, generally the more gracious and lovely they are.
Yeah.
And there's something about the middling or an actor who once had success, or a musician who once had success, who then has fallen from grace, and they are generally the crappiest people. There's a chip on their shoulder. They roll deep with a big entourage. Whereas you have someone like Ryan Reynolds who drives himself and just like parks and like wanders through. Like there's just a different energy. So probably some of the one story that, of course, those of you who know the show might know this, but I'm going to share it anyway. Jason Momoa is a beautiful man who you might know from
That's a
Aquaman.
mountain I would climb.
Right? That is. And I'm not that type of a girl. Like my husband, my partner, he's actually a small man. Like I'm not really about a refrigerator, like kind of hulking being. That's not my bag. But I first noticed him when he was on Game of Thrones. Any Game of Thrones fans
Yeah.
here? So way back in
He
season 1.
twirled that Khaleesi around like a baton.
Yes, he did. But he was sort of an awful character. Like there was a real problematic, but I could not take my eyes off him. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so Aquaman then now.
Gorgeous, yeah.
Gorgeous, long hair, was married to Lisa Bonet. Anyway, I had actually interviewed him a couple of times, but didn't expect him to remember. But then I ended up saying a lot of filthy stuff about him, like a G-rated filthy stuff, but on the show, like I'd said, like I'd like to play a game on that throne.
Oh my God,
I'd said stuff
Cynthia.
like that.
So between the two interviews, you had...
Yes, I'd said a lot of stuff, and then one of the producers thought it would be a great idea to assemble a little montage of all of the things I'd said about him and show it to him live on the air.
Oh my God.
When he was on the show. So I didn't know. I knew they
that's
were
funny,
up to
yeah.
something, but he came and he sat down and then they played it and I was just mortified. He was luckily
On live
so
TV.
gracious about it. But I will tell you, so yeah, he was so gracious about it. He was lovely. He had a good laugh.
How fired is that producer?
No, she's amazing. But I will tell you that it was so interesting to watch the impact that he had, because even men behind the cameras were like, I get it. I want to have sex with them too. Like it was just
Yeah.
So he was one of the best. He was just amazing. And then worst, not that they're the worst. Well, there's the worst of someone who I will name, which is that, like, they say never meet your heroes.
Oh.
So I was so excited because my very first, like when I was like a kid, like a child, 45 was The Police. It was like a message in a bottle.
Yeah.
And I obviously had been a big fan of The Police and Sting. And so when Sting was coming on the show, I was like, he's like into like Tantra. He's like, he's going to be so cool. We're going to get along. I just thought we would have a connection. And he was like cold as ice.
Wow.
And it's just always a bit shocking. But then I'm kind of giving grace. Like, imagine how many people try to make a connection with him on a daily basis. It must be exhausting. But he was a bit freezy. And then there's one person I won't name who is an actress who was on our show twice. The first time she was on, she was just short with her answers, not very kind. She was promoting a side hustle that she has. And it was unmemorable. She came around a second time around, a year later, and was, again, promoting this side hustle. And we do rehearsals sometimes beforehand where a producer stands in and says, okay, here's when this actor is going to say, we run through the questions, basically. And one of the producers was pretending to be that actress. And it turns on that the monitors were actually projecting into the green room where she was waiting. So she saw the whole thing. But, guys, she came out sweet as punch, and she ended up sending a huge basket of gifts to the social staff. I think maybe it was a small time where she learned about herself and
that's
actually
nice to
maybe
know.
became maybe a nicer person. I don't know.
Thanks to the social.
Maybe.
The social does make people nicer. I am nicer after I go on. It is a true thing.
Thanks.
That
But
happens.
I think also sometimes it's not just the people you have on the show who's nice and who's not nice. It also depends on the show. So like Cynthia's right, the bigger the star, usually the more, gracious they are, right? And
Debbie is very gracious.
but sometimes the other side of it is the people who work on the show. So the smaller the show, they just treat you like these are the runners and the stuff. They're nobody. They're like 17-year-old spotty kid, intern, who it's like seriously like who are you, like this, and they don't make you feel special. And I had an incident because I did Oprah quite a few times, and I get to all the way to Chicago, the Oprah Winfrey show, and I'm going to be doing something for them, and I'd come from some small Canadian town where they were kind of so rude to me, the people behind the scenes, because it was a tiny little show. So I get to Oprah, and they were so nice. And then I get in the green room, and there's an older gentleman sitting there, very quiet, just sitting like this. And I'm getting my suitcase out, and I've got all my stuff out and everything. Anyway, this intern comes in and says, Miss Travis, I'm really, really sorry, but you're going to have to leave. I said, leave? He said, well, we've cancelled your segment. And I said, oh, why? And he said, well, you know, this gentleman here, we're going to do the whole show with him. I looked at him like filthy look. And I said, and who are you? He said, my name's Nelson. I said, Nelson who? It was Nelson Mandela.
Oh, my.
And I'm packing up my suitcase. And he said, and what were you going to talk about? And he had this beautiful voice, like velvet. And I said, well, I'm showing people how to really rip off wallpaper. And what were you going to talk about? He said, well, world peace. I said, well, you'll never know how to rip off wallpaper now, because I'm going home. And I just didn't know who it was. And then, of course, I got
Debbie.
out of the studio, called my husband. He said, that was Nelson Mandela, you foolish woman.
God. Oh, Debbie. Okay, Cynthia. I want to talk.
You'll never know how to rip off wallpaper.
I want to talk about Find Your Pleasure, which is your online hub, starting with what is an online hub? I'm 54.
Well, listen, it was something that I launched in the midst of like a couple of years into the social. I had basically a panic attack live on the air, and I didn't tell anybody at the time. And I was struggling with this new show, and I was a new mom, and I was pumping my breasts at work, and it was a bit of a mess, and I was sleep deprived. And so I ended up, I think it was when Justin Trudeau was on one time before he actually became the prime minister. And I remember listening to him talk, and I just sort of like blanked out. And it was a really scary experience because I thought I might throw up or pass out. I did neither, but it was very alarming to me. I thought something's not right. So
And you had been doing live television for so long.
had been.
And that's the scary part, I imagine, is like, this is something I know. This is something I can do. This is my
Yes.
everyday life.
Yes.
And then that took over.
And then it took over, and then I just started thinking about how, and that's why I love the work that you do. It was just like I hadn't experienced a lot of like joy or pleasure, and I think a lot of new moms can relate to this. I wasn't doing anything for me. I was mired in to-do lists and mother guilt and all these kinds of emotions. So I decided to do this sort of deep dive on pleasure, because also I was raised Catholic, and that word was so fraught when I was growing up
Right.
about, and it was always associated with sex. And I think pleasure is about so much more than that. So I wanted to sort of explore, how do we live a sensual life? How do we tap into our bodies and our thoughts and find, our
The
joys.
senses.
Yeah. And so I wrote this book, which I described as a book that has recipes for life. Sorry, it's not a cookbook
I have
at
the
all.
book, and it's a great book.
Thank you. And
Which
it's,
is
I mean,
called Find Your Pleasure, the
that's
Art
right.
of Living a More Joyful Life.
And you contributed some photos to it.
Just
You
some-
and your lovely partner Patrick.
Yeah, just some
beautiful photos. So yeah, it was a labor of love. It was amazing, and it was launched. So I would highly recommend people don't do this. Do not launch your book when there's about to be a global pandemic.
I've
not
managed to
great
avoid that
timing.
one so far.
But anyway, it was lovely. We launched in January 2020, or I launched it, and so it's a multifaceted thing. Right now, it's been a bit dormant as I've been doing the podcast, and also because I don't want to burn out. But I am slowly starting to resurrect it. And
It is
stay tuned.
I can tell everyone listening and everyone here in the live audience, it's actually a really, really special book, because it's one of those books where you'll find something that you completely intimately relate to, and then you'll find way more things that you should be more mindful of and had kind of forgotten about maybe, or not noticed in a little while. Like I remember when I was in high school, I don't know how many of you know who June Callwood was, but she was a
Yes.
journalist and a humanist, a humanitarian. She started Casey House, the first ever freestanding AIDS hospice in North America. And she came to my high school because Bree Fitzgerald, her granddaughter, is an old friend of mine, and we went to school together. So June came to speak at our school, and she spoke on the subject of recognizing kindness in the everyday.
Yeah.
And there's a lot about pleasure in that. The discussion that ensued with we were 16-year-old high school kids, was really about looking for simple things that you might not have noticed.
Yep.
A person who opens the door for you, and then maybe later on that day you hold the door open for somebody else. And what do you experience when you do that? Pleasure.
Yes.
It actually makes you feel good. So
Yeah.
I loved the book,
Thank
not
you.
just because my pictures were in it. I ran to buy the book because I was like, oh my God, I've got pictures in a book. And then I read it, and I was like, this is a really, really beautiful book.
Thank you. Thank you.
So yeah,
Appreciate
highly
it.
recommended. Again, not a sponsor,
Thank you. Thank you.
but truly, truly, genuinely highly recommend it.
Thank you.
Okay, so are you ready for a game?
Yes. I'm ready for a game. You ready for a game?
We're going to do another game.
But there will be no winners. Well, the winners will be just
So
everyone who might laugh.
everyone's
That
a
will be-
winner. Everyone's a winner. So Sarah, who you know now, our producer, is walking around with cards, and the cards have words on them. If she comes to you, you're going to pick a card, any card, and read the word out to us. We will have to tell a story inspired by that word or associated with that word as a jumping
the
off
spot.
point. Gird your loins, ladies. This is Linda.
Mick Jagger.
Oh. I think we both have a big Jagger.
I've got the
story.
moves like Jagger.
Oh, you do.
But I'm not doing that tonight because they're not paying me enough.
Oh, that's a good one.
Do you want to
No,
go?
you do yours.
Okay. I'll try to keep this short. So years ago, I used to moonlight in my early producing career as a belly dancer. So I belly danced for
my
about
God, yes,
15
I-
years of my
Like
life.
you do.
I knew this about you.
I had gone to Egypt. I'd learned how to dance from a million different places. And so I was moonlighting in Arabic clubs around the city. And one of the places that I danced at was a place called Fez Boutique. Does anyone remember it on Queen Street
I
West?
remember
Yes?
Fez Boutique, of course.
Some people in the back. Amazing place. And so I was dancing this one night. And when I finished up my set, I was having a drink and I noticed at the corner, I was like, that guy looks like Ronnie Wood. And he was with a bunch of people and none of my friends knew who they were just like, who's Rolling Stones? They were just totally clueless. I was like, that is Ronnie Wood. No, that's not. I don't think that people are trying to like look it up on their phone. Anyway, I forgot about this. I didn't have the courage to go up and say anything because I was a bit insecure that it wasn't him. Anyway, forgot all about it. I'm back, I'm doing producing, I'm working very hard, and I'm starting to kind of distance, thinking like, I can't do so much belly dancing. I got to just focus on my daytime career.
I think this all the time. This is literally what I think every
Late
Monday.
nights, shisha clubs, swords on head. It was getting to be a lot. So
Yes.
my agent calls me up and she says, I have a gig for you. It's on a Tuesday night. It's a 60-year-old's birthday party, a man. And I was like, no, I'm out. And I'll fast forward to the end of this story.
Because
and my
that would give you the
girlfriend-
ick a little
Yeah, it was
bit,
giving
right?
me the ick. And I was just like, I had to cut out some things. And my girlfriend calls me the other day and she's like, oh, Cynthia, girlfriend, guess what? I took your spot and it was Mick Jagger's birthday party. And all I know is I feel like Ronnie Wood saw me and chose me and I would have been there. And then the thing is that I've had to rationalize it being like, maybe it was not the path I was meant to go down. Maybe I
Okay.
would have ended up being like the mom of his... Didn't he still impregnating people at like
he's
80,
still doing
isn't
it
he?
now.
Oh, yeah, no,
I don't want
totally.
that too. I don't
Nobody's
want that
safe.
life.
Nobody's
I don't
safe.
want that life.
Oh, nobody's
your-
safe because he's still sexy.
He's still- well-
So you could still maybe, you might give permission.
No.
You know, you might. I might. I've never been told I look much like Jerry Hall, so I don't think it's happening. That's a way back throwback.
I like that.
Okay, do we have another word?
Airdrop.
Does everybody know what airdrop is by show of hands? So airdrop is this thing on your phone where a person, if your phone is turned on to a certain setting, a person can send you a picture. And I was sitting in the airport terminal at the gate at LaGuardia in New York, and this airdrop message popped up. And so I thought, oh, I must know somebody here. And I was looking around, who do I know? And I hit the thing to look at the picture, and it zoomed out. And it was a picture of a large hand holding a dangling man by his penis. And I thought...
Someone felt you had to see that photo.
I didn't know what to feel. I thought, is this a proposition? Is this a threat? I really didn't know what
Did you
to think of
immediately
it.
look around and be like, who's like? 'Cause
Of course. The
Wait,
first
who
thing
is
I
it?
did was like, who sent that? And there's like the little old lady over here and the sort of very buttoned up businessman over there. I know it was the businessman.
Yeah.
But it was, so fast forward, like later on, Patrick has always been trying to send me things by airdrop, like because, we're sharing photos all the time from trips or nights out or whatever. And for some reason, my phone doesn't work with airdrop anymore. So like the hand with the dangling penis guy broke my airdrop, I think, because it literally doesn't work. Patrick's right there in the back.
You're probably banned from it.
Oh, I might be banned from it, just like you're banned from Uber.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
let's
it's
have
quite
another.
dangerous airdrop, isn't it?
It is. You could just send anybody anything. It
If
could
you have
be,
it open, like if you have your airdrop thing, it's context only.
Yes.
You gotta close your. You probably close
It's
your.
like having your
contacts.
mouth open. Like, close it. Something could fly in there that you don't want.
Someone could fly in there. Right.
Okay.
Next one.
So it's Laura,
Laura.
and the word is audition.
Audition. Okay. Why are you looking at me? I don't think I have an audition story. I'm going to pass on that one.
I had an audition, I just remembered this one, many, many years ago, centuries ago, as a bunny girl at the Playboy Club in London.
Shut your
Yes,
mouth when
I
you're
just
talking to
remembered
me.
this. That's the only time I've ever auditioned for anything. And
I
it
don't
was-
think I've ever heard
Was
this
Hugh
story.
Hefner there?
No, it was the Bunny Club,
Okay,
the
but is that-
Playboy Club
it
in
is-
London.
yeah, okay.
And there was other stuff going on there as well. But they paid well. And
I bet they did.
Yeah, and I went with my friend, and we were given these bunny outfits where basically the bra is like a shelf. So you can have the flattest boobs, and you've got a cleavage like this. So you have to get into this thing because it's tiny, and your waist is like this big. Your boobs are hanging out, and mine wouldn't stay in. They just would not stay in.
Oh my God.
Because it was like a piece of cardboard. And so we had to go in it was awful. I mean, this was the early 80s where, everything was cringe. And so we had to go in, and there was a bunch of guys sitting around a table, and I'm being interviewed, obviously, with fishnet stockings on, this red thing, and a tail. And my tail, my outfit, somebody else had obviously worn it the night before, so my tail got... Now I remember, got trapped in the door.
Oh my God.
So half my tail's come off, and as they're interviewing me, because they're asking me if I can, serve, because you're walking around serving.
Yes.
I think it was closed down a few years later, and and these guys are staring at me. And I looked down, my boobs had just fallen out. And I was basically topless. I was just sitting there chatting away.
Sorry, Max.
Yeah, so,
Did you get the job?
no, I didn't.
Okay.
I started painting houses.
You made the right choice. I
kept the
think.
bunny out.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I didn't see that one coming. Neither did
I.
they.
I just remembered that one on the spot. Hi, my love.
My name is Yvonne,
Hi, Yvonne.
and the word is horse.
Oh. Wow.
Horse on sex.
I feel this is an odd story that I think about with horse. Do you have a horse story?
No.
Or do you have a horse
I
story?
mean, I've been on horseback.
Okay.
I mean, there's not like an extraordinary story. So you take it away,
Well,
Cynthia.
I mean, this is a bit horse adjacent. Is anyone familiar with the fetish pony play?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I said that really fast and really emphatically, but I do happen to know a
it.
little bit about this,
Yeah.
and there's a
well,
reason that I know.
it's interesting because I told you that I used to work at this documentary series about human sexuality, and again, we interviewed everyone from like super high academics to priests to porn stars. It was like the whole gamut, and the idea behind the show was to hold a mirror up to interesting things happening around the world. And at first, you hear some things or whatever, and I'm just like, oh, like what is up with that? And then sometimes I had to marvel at the sheer imagination of it all. So I heard about
That's a lovely way of putting it.
well, I had heard this story, but I think it might have even have its origins in England. Don't quote me on that. But there was this whole group of people who, like, part of their erotic kink was that they would get dressed up as a horse and a rider, okay? And they take this very seriously. So the person who gets into like their pony space puts in like a bit and like a feather thing and wears a tail and then has sometimes hooves, and then the rider is just the rider. So I found this as again a documentary producer. I found this couple who I was going to, I believe it was in North Carolina, okay? So I traveled with I was doing a bunch of different stories along the way. It was a road trip. I get there with my camera guy, who I don't really know that well, and this is an odd show. To be in a professional environment that's about sex is unusual. Yes. And again, to be clear, I went to the University of Michigan just a couple of years ago to get my sex educator certificate, and they showed episodes of our show. That's how influential this show was
Yeah, it was
as
a really
teaching environment.
maverick show,
just
yeah.
feel like I need to justify it a little bit. But anyway, this particular episode was not necessarily used as a teachable moment, but it was for me in the sense of like I met this. So the guy, by day, he was a photographer of I think beauty pageants, and he traveled the world, and that was how he made his living. He was an odd kid. He's been kind of medicated, like a little bit like Southern, and he wore a kind of cowboy hat and a shirt, but very nice and very kind. His wife had this like long red hair, quite beautiful, very curvy, and she was a scientist. She was like a boss lady, really whip smart. She had told me that she got out of this messy divorce, and she was trying to just experiment with dating scene, and she thought maybe she wanted to explore the sort of S&M scene, and she wasn't sure. She said she thought she was maybe a submissive, but she was frustrating a lot of dominant personalities because she was too bossy. And so somebody said to her, well, you might be a pony. And she's like, what? And it turns out this girl had lived on pony lands. Like she was obsessed with horses all her life, just thought they were so beautiful. And so it was like, for her, it was like a moment of like, click, 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 I'm a pony girl. And so she found this guy, Paul. Her name was Mary, I think Paul. Anyway, and the two of them, love was born. And so I listened to them talk about this thing that, again, doesn't really involve intercourse at all. It's adult play. They get into their imaginative space. He showed me around. They did a kind of little act and whatever. And again, not erotic at all from my perspective. But at the very end, of course, this guy turns to me and he goes, so do you want to put on a French maid costume and let me ride you around a little bit? And I was like... No, thank you. You don't want to offend the people who are interviewing.
Well,
but
Cynthia,
I was like,
you had left your French maid costume at home. Obviously, you didn't know to bring it.
No, thank you. But then from the other room, this stupid camera guy goes, because what I said was my excuse was I was like, I'm a journalist. Like I'm just here to observe. Like I don't get involved in anything I interviewed. And my camera guy goes from the other room, oh, it's okay, Cynthia. If you want to do it, I won't tell anybody. Anyway, that's the end of my horse story, guys.
Oh,
Sorry.
that's some on-the-job training for that camera guy. I mean, and wow.
So I've seen a lot of things. There's some things I can't unsee.
Did you do lots of people who do swapping and stuff like that?
All of it. I've been,
Because, I always thought if you ever ended up by mistake at one of those parties...
With the keys in the bowl.
Where they swap couples and stuff. We'd be sitting there, nobody picks us,
Oh, come on.
I'd be like, oh, let's go and get a burger.
Your husband is adorable. He would get picked for sure. So would you. Okay, are we ready for another word? Okay, here we are.
Hi there. My name is Jill.
Hi, Jill.
And my word is restaurant.
Well, actually, I have my artichoke story. Should I tell that?
Oh my God, the artichoke story.
Okay.
I think we should...
So this is a restaurant in London. It actually brings Mick Jagger in because this was a club. So in the book, I'm writing about something that's going on in Italy during this year there. So in the spring, artichokes are really the most exciting thing that's coming out because we don't import food in Italy. Everything is grown there. So there's about 200 varieties of artichokes, and the Italians go nuts. And you go to the market, and the old ladies are fighting over them, and they have tiny artichokes that are like golf balls that they slice raw, very, very thin, the Italians, and put a vinaigrette on. Then they have purple artichokes where they make a sauce, and there's just so many. And then they have the big, the big globe artichokes. So what happened when I was writing this book? You're telling this story, and there was a crazy thing that happened in the market. But as I'm telling it, I thought, God, I remember. I nearly died once. I was nearly killed by an artichoke.
What?
Oh, yes. It was awful. So what happened was I come from the north of England where the food is...
The drama of it all. I was nearly killed
I was.
by an artichoke.
Come gather
like a
around.
children's story.
Come gather around the fire.
Beware, all artichokes. So, as my children said, I've actually only learned, my son will say this, in the last few weeks before this media tour, because I've told this story a few times, how to say it right, because I can't actually say the word. Am I right, Max? I say artichoke, and he says, Mum, say it 20 times, artichoke. So anyway, now I've got it right. So in London, when I moved to London when I was 16 and a half, told my mum I was leaving home, and she basically said, "Do you want a jam sandwich for the bus?" And that was it. And that was the way I was brought up. She had a big family. She was widowed. She was very young, and it was one less mouth to feed. So I went to London, and at about 17 or 18, we were clubbing. And it was the really fun days of clubbing and stuff. Now, the most famous club in London was called Tramps. Every movie star, musician, Joan Collins would be there, Bowie on the dance floor, Mick Jagger on there, all these people were there. But men were not allowed in on their own because they didn't want gangs of guys going in. So what men would do, they would go to the wine bars, pick up a couple of girls. The deal was they bought you dinner so they could get into the club, and then they could go and get somebody prettier or thinner or whatever. And that went on all the time. So I end up with a bunch of guys and a bunch of pretty girls, and in the club was a restaurant. Like, it was open. One guy, wealthy guy, orders the dinner for everyone. And then everybody gets asked to dance except me. So they all get up, and they're all out there with, these famous people dancing on the dance floor and stuff like this. And I'm sitting there, like fly on the wall, wallflower. The waiter comes, and he puts the starter down, and it's an artichoke. And next to it, he puts a little bowl, warm water with a lemon in it. And I have never seen an artichoke in my life before. And I'm looking at this thing and thinking, God, they're weird in London. What is this? It looks like a big plant, What is it? So I eat it. I eat the thorns, the outside leaves, the inside hairy bit. And I'm thinking, God, these people in London are weird. I'm chewing this thing. So I drink the bowl because it helps it kind of goes down. Anyway,
Which is a finger bowl.
It's a finger bowl.
Yes.
So it's a posh people's food, So anyway, everybody comes back from the dance floor, and the girl sitting next to me goes, "Did you not get anything?" As they delicately pick into this artichoke. I said, "Well, I ate it." And as I said it, there was a line of blood.
Oh my God.
And I was taken in an ambulance to the hospital, to emergency, and I literally ripped the inside of my throat apart. I wasn't allowed to speak. It was very difficult for about a month. And I ate the entire thing. So I had a phobia of artichokes for a very long time.
Like, was there any point at which you were consuming this that you thought, like, maybe I'm not doing this right?
Yeah, like, yeah.
Was there,
That's what I wondered too.
But when you're young and you're vulnerable and you're you're trying
wanted
to
to
look
fit in.
grown up,
Yeah.
you want
Right.
to fit in, and
the posh people eat painful food.
Yeah,
you were just
so
kind
it's
of
like
whatever.
that's why they're all so thin. It's like.
I had a friend who was at a cocktail party on a dock in the Muskoka Lakes, and this very glamorous woman who was wearing a poochy dress. They were handing out corn on the cob. It was a summer party. And she ate all of the corn off the cob and then proceeded to eat the cob.
No.
In front of all of these people and in front of my friend, who was so flabbergasted that she was dumbfounded and couldn't even say anything to stop her, and she ate the whole fucking thing.
Kind of admire that.
I mean, less sharp than an artichoke, but equally as alarming.
Yeah.
That she wasn't eating it and thinking, this is very woody, texturally.
They're not very good
Strange.
cooks at this place. Yeah.
Also, nobody else was eating the cob. They were putting them down.
I don't even know what to say to that.
I don't know either.
I don't even know.
I don't know either. I don't know. Okay, we have another word.
Hi, it's Joanne.
Hi, Joanne.
Embarrassed.
Oh,
The
well,
whole evening.
constantly. Yeah. Nonstop.
Well, we could say how embarrassed our boy on the boat was. So when we went on the boat, I had a butler. This butler.
This is the love story to end all love stories, Debbie and her butler. Nobody has ever wanted or dreamed of or appreciated a butler more than this woman. Appreciated. Your butler's name was Marion.
He was called Marion.
He was a huge man named Marion.
Yeah, he was Yugoslav. He was about 6'5", and he was watching old reruns of my show. And honestly, I think he wet himself when I walked on the boat. And he was like, and then he was given to me, and he was my personal butler. And of course, I've never had a butler before, so I used butler, Marion, I think I'll just have this. So he did everything for me, and Tommy would have to say when we'd go for dinner, right, Marion, you can leave now, because he'd just be like this.
Oh, yeah, no, it was a scenic cruise, but really, in Debbie's mind, it was Cleopatra's barge.
And then, so one morning, most people had left the boat. So it's me and Marion, and a couple of people were playing cards on the front, and they had these glass doors. So I thought, great, nobody's here. I'm going to go and get a coffee. But they'd closed the glass doors, and I had a brand new white shirt on with a cup of coffee, hot coffee, and I walked right through the glass door. And it didn't break, but because it was that kind of special glass, and it bounced back.
Debbie-proof glass.
But it went all over me, and then Marion came running like in slow motion, you know. And this boat's like 20 times the length of this room, and he was horrified.
He's so devoted to her. Has anyone ever seen that show Veep? Yeah. You know, what's his name? Peter Hale? Something Hale.
Yeah.
Yes, the character Tony Hale. That was Marion to Debbie. Was the Tony Hale? He every
Have you
time.
kept in touch?
Oh yes, we're married now.
Okay. Okay. So we're gonna wrap it up on that note. We're gonna do a little Q&A. Sarah's gonna go into the audience with the mic, like Sally, Jesse, Raphael.
Who has a question?
If anybody has a question, you can ask anything, because if we don't, if it's too inappropriate, we'll edit it out.
I have a Sally, Jesse, Raphael story.
Oh my God. Of course you
Oh
do.
my God! I just remembered this one. Can I tell it quickly?
Yeah.
She was out of LA. Do you remember? She was one with the big glasses, right? So I was invited on the show, and it was before 9/11, so you could take your paint on the plane. So I had luggage with a huge can of green paint and boards. That was my demo for the show. And I get to LAX, and you know when the suitcases are coming round, I see a trail of green. Oh, God, no. Oh, God. Anyway, they put me in the Beverly Hills, the really fancy hotel. And everywhere I went, pulling the pulley, was a line all through the lobby, all up the stairs, all in the elevator. But I didn't care, because it had my clothes in. I got into the hotel. I said to the guy, no, I don't need to know where the fridge is. Goodbye. I opened the thing up in the bath, and my clothes are ruined. I mean, ruined. And I was on the show, and it was late at night. There was nowhere to go for clothes. So I had to wear...
Well, in LA, there are places to go for clothes late at night, but not
I'm
the kind of
sure.
clothes you want to wear on TV. They're the kind of clothes you want to wear on the corner.
But the mess I made, I ended up washing the carpet in there, washing this, washing that. And then I had a friend in LA, and I said, can you come and pick me up? So like kind of drug dealers, we put all the towels that are soaked now in green paint. This is the night before the show. And we drive around, where can we leave them? Because I didn't want the hotel to see them, because they charge me. And so we find this is absolutely true. We find a dumpster down a back alley. So she drives up. This is my friend Elspeth. I get out, open the pulley, and it's full of soaking wet. It had a gallon of paint in it, right? Of all the towels from the hotel room, from the Beverly Hilton?
Beverly Hilton, yeah.
So we opened the dumpster. I just throw them in, and as I'm getting back in the car, a face came out and said, oh, thanks a lot, mate. And then I did the show in my horrible clothes that I'd flown in with Marla Maples, who was not very nice. Do you remember her?
Yeah, Donald Trump's
and,
ex.
yeah. And I remember her saying, you can change, you know. And I said, I don't have any clothes. And they were like, and that was it. But she was nice. Sally, Jesse, Raphael.
She was nice, but Marla not so much.
Hi, I'm Cheryl from Toronto. And Tommy, I just wanted to know, how did you start your career relationship with Sarah Richardson?
Oh, that was kind of like Charlie's Angels. I was toiling away in retail, actually really loving working in retail for one of my mentors, Yusuf Hasbani. And Sarah was a frequent customer in the store, and she and I knew each other socially before that. She was friends with my sister, Christy Smythe, who's a fashion designer. And early on in Christy's life, an exploration of fashion, she started knitting hats. And Sarah was photographing Christy's hats on two of my friends who were models. And Sarah and I became friends socially. And then when she was a client in the store, she just came in one day and she said, I'm doing this new television show for HGTV called Room Service. And I said, no, I know it. She'd already done one season. And she said, Patsy is leaving and I need somebody to come in and fill her spot. Would you ever consider leaving L'Atelier and coming and working for me on the show? And so I did, and then that turned into a year-round relationship. So I stayed on and did client work with Sarah outside of the production schedules. And then just as the years went on, we did room service for several years. That was back when television networks were commissioning 26 episode seasons.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you get 6, it's good. If you get 8, it's like a huge parade up University Avenue. So we just did a lot of that together and spent many years together, and then developed into, the network started saying, you've got like all of the people when she did Design Inc., which was the maverick TV show that changed the game in lifestyle television again after Debbie changed it first. She kind of pulled back the curtain on the runnings of a real interior design firm. And I did well on that show, I think mostly because, she and I worked so well together and liked a lot of the same things, but also because my mother, had said to me, you just have to be yourself. And because if you don't, and you might have to hold up this lie for a really long time, because what if the show runs a long time? So the network started saying, could Tommy do more episodes season to season? Could you give him 8 instead of 2? And so then it turned into Sarah's House, and then I was invited to become her co-host.
So great.
Yeah, and it was a really fun, way to be able to be. We always said, Sarah and I, that we were on television because we were good designers. We were not good designers because we were on television. And the distinction for me was always really important. Sarah, I think, the TV thing was more important to her, not than design, but more important to her in general. For me, I fell into it. I kind of it happened to me. It wasn't something that I ran toward or that I pursued. And now that I'm basically retired from doing television, people are always like, when are you going to do more TV? And I always say, it always needed me more than I needed it. And then I feel like you kind of naturally age out of it. It's a hard job. It doesn't pay well in Canada. My American counterparts make 10 times more than I ever did. And so you have to really be, energetic. You have to have the energy to do it. You have to really love doing it. And you're taking a huge pay cut. I was working for, literally less than a quarter if you broke it down to a per hour rate when I was doing television than I was making when I was doing actual design work. So, but I was so fortunate to do both, and I loved doing both. So yeah, that's how Sarah and I had a very organic way of meeting. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Joanne. I'm told this is the last question, so I'm very fortunate. Mine's for Debbie. Would you ever, because you do retreats, would you ever open the villa up to where a couple could come and stay for a week?
Like a hotel.
Kind of like a hotel. Like I've been to Tuscany and have stayed at out remote little places that are like 5 rooms.
It's difficult. So we do classic car rallies now, which we love, absolutely love, and we started with the retreats. The problem is I'm doing this really for fun. I love it, and running a hotel is a whole different thing. When you run a hotel, and it's a dream for so many people, I want to have a B&B and everything, but you become chained to it, because then what happens is the phone rings and it's like, can we come away? And we get this all the time now. People call and say, we're in the area, can we come for 2 nights? We say no, and they turn up, and so no. No, it's not what it is. It's our home. So it's our lives, it's our home, and it's, during COVID, we did have a Dutch couple call us, because during COVID, when you were all stuck in your houses, Europeans could travel by car, and it's very easy to go from country to country. So this couple said, can we stay? And we were like, nothing to do. So we said, sure. And they got to the place, and they were like, it's all ours? And we were like, sure, but then we found them in our fridge, because we said, well, if you want food, you have to go out, and because we're not a restaurant, and so you give an inch, and so no, we would no, because the great thing about the retreats is I can organize it. I know exactly what we're doing in the year, and then we take kind of July, August for our family and friends and things like that. So no.
Okay, well, that was our last question. I want to say, I have a couple of things to say as we wind down, as we wrap up. Cynthia, thank you for coming back with
thank
us.
you for having me, guys.
Please come
Thank
back
you.
again.
Thank you.
We never get to touch on everything that I want to talk to you about and that Debbie wants to know about you. I know that the two of you are becoming closer friends
Big fan.
off camera, and I really want to thank you so much for being here. We are going to be staying around for a little hi, how are ya? Afterwards. Debbie's going to be signing books.
Yeah.
So the ladies from Indigo outside, if you haven't already bought a book, Debbie's going to be signing those outside. I want to thank, of course, the Women in Media Network, Sarah Burke, our incredible producer, podcast producer, and her cohort and friend, Chris Brenton, who's my manager, sort of conceived of these live shows, and it's been such a pleasure and so well organized. And thank you all for being here. Thank you to Universal Music and the Academy. This venue is so cool, don't you think? Like, it is just, that whole art installation in the back is old chairbacks from Massey Hall. So Universal is where music in Canada lives.
That's cool.
It is a super special, amazing place. This building was designed by Supercool, which is like one of my favorite Canadian architecture firms. So thank you to Universal. It's always a pleasure to be here. I came and sat in on Jan's recording, and it was amazing, and that's how we came to be here. So thank you to everyone at Universal. Lisa, Dawn, and of course, Basma, and our friends at Aperol. So Basma Beauty, thank you for allowing us to have a cute little loot bag and fun games. And thank you to Aperol Spritz for tonight and all those other nights. And all the nights to come. So thank you, everyone. That's been amazing. That's a wrap.